Hello, my fellow crafters, and welcome back. Today I'm making a card using some new supplies that I got. First, I am applying some anti-static powder from my Tailored Expressions powder tool. I'm going to put some VersaFine Clear ink on this background stamp. This is the Darling Dahlias stamp. I end up having to reapply the ink several times because this is watercolor paper, and just because of the texture, it requires a lot more ink. And here I'm adding some clear embossing powder to the entire panel. Then we're going to tap off the excess onto a spare piece of paper. Usually I do put that back in the container, and I think I'm asking for an accident by leaving that out here. I got my heat tool nice and warmed up and melted all of the clear embossing powder so that it left the embossed black outline. This will help quite a bit when watercoloring this image later. I do like to wipe my glass mat off with a Swiffer cloth just to make sure I get all that powder up. So here I'm using some masking tape to tape the panel onto an old clipboard that I have. I find that this helps keep the paper flat when I'm applying water. It was already a little bit warped from the heat. All right, so trying to find the stencil that I use first. It's this outline looking one. They are labeled, but they're very hard to see, so I need to go in and add a Sharpie or some sort of paint so that it's easier to read. And of course, I struggled with this, trying to figure out how it was lined up. I used this yesterday for a blog hop that I'm in and did not have this much trouble. Come to find out, it was upside down. Once I figured that out, it was pretty easy to get into position. I like to add little pencil marks at the corners of the stencil so that it's a lot easier to line up the next ones. You're going to cut the panel down and nobody will even know that these were there. I tape the stencil down to the paper just to make sure that it doesn't move. This is some highlighter tape that I found on Amazon, and it works really well because it doesn't tear the paper when you take it off. I added some Nuvo shimmer powders in yellow, pink, and blue. So my intent with this card was to do a rainbow assortment of flowers and then try to do a faux Joseph's coat technique with the background being in black. So I'm starting off with some pink powder here. I'm definitely not an artist. I am not experienced with watercoloring, so I just did the best I could to get it where it needed to be. Here I'm starting to add in some orange. Mixing a little bit of the yellow with the pink. All right, adding in some yellow now. Trying to be careful I don't mix it in too much into the orange. Adding in some green here. I'm trying to stick with the colors of the rainbow in the correct order, but I decided that I'm going to have green in the leaves also. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and turn this green into a blue so that I can add purple down close to the bottom. Okay, now mixing some of that pink with the blue to get purple. And I'm sorry, this was just a little bit out of frame. The purple ended up being pretty dark down at the bottom, so I took some extra water and just added some more water to kind of dilute the color a little bit. Taking off that first stencil and heat drying it just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it because I will remelt that embossing powder. Not too bad. There were places that ran, but in the end, I think it'll be covered up with that black. Went in with some yellow and blue mixed together to get this really pretty green. Nuvo shimmer powders are really, really cool in that you can mix the different colors and get other colors of the rainbow. I've only got pink, yellow, blue, and then a black, and I can make pretty much any color that I want. All right, all finished. So I'll take the stencil off and reveal what I have so far. Doesn't look so appealing right now, but I think you're really gonna like the end product. This is stencil number 5. This is the one that colors in the background. So I'm gonna get that into place, which as you can see by that, it was really simple. So now I'm taking a smaller brush and my Memento ink, and I'm gonna layer on this black as dark as I can get it. I wasn't sure it was gonna work, so I crossed my fingers. I ended up going back over all of the spots more than once just to make sure it was dark as I could get it. All right, let's take the stencil off. And that looks pretty darn good. It's watercolor. There were some places that ran that I didn't really care for, but overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I do end up going back and filling in some of the spots that I missed with the watercolor because I didn't use one of the other layers, but that's pretty easy to fix. You just want to be careful that you don't get the water in the Memento ink because it will run. All right, taking the panel off of the clipboard so that I can show you what we've got so far. So I decided to cut this down a little bit more using a layering die that I got from Spellbinders. And there's the card base. I thought it needed a little extra purple, so I decided to put it on a purple card base, scored at 5.5. Here I'm looking at it, and although I really like it, I think it needs a little bit more. So I decided to add some gold splatter. This gold is from the Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors gold watercolor palette. I was a little torn about the gold after I got it on there. It didn't show up as much as I wanted, but that's okay. I'm going to fix that. I'm adding some foam tape to the back for dimension. And then I'm going to adhere this panel to the purple card base. I thought about using a big word sentiment to put on the front, but I decided to go with a smaller sentiment from Tailored Expressions. I didn't want to cover up so much of the rainbow colors. This is from the Tailored Expressions Simple Strips Friendship Set. And I went with the one that says, "You are my sunshine." I layered that up with a couple pieces of black cardstock just to give it a little bit more dimension. And then to add a little bit more gold sparkle into it, like I originally wanted with the watercolors, I used these gold confetti sequins from Cat Scrappiness. And I'm just going to adhere those with some Gina K Connect glue, and this will be finished. All right, this is the finished card. I think it turned out great. If you like this technique, be sure to give it a try. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for other crafting videos coming up very soon.